Our most respected lawyer and SAN, Femi Falana, is finally out to share his own side of the story. Recall that for quite some time now, there has been a lingering case between Bobrisky, VDN, EFCC, and Nigeria Correctional Service.
Mr. Femi Falana, it's good to see you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. Mr. Falana, just before you get, this is the first time some of us are seeing you in public after that very controversial story involving VDM and Bobrisky. What exactly is your own side of the story in this matter?
Well, so I think it's a question of infantile radicalism. Some of our young people are just not prepared to look at the provisions of the law with respect to the law on defamation. So they just simply go out there to embarrass people. I can say this without any fear of contradiction. I have assisted 280 people, convicted people, at home and abroad, to get pardon. On one occasion, 200 Nigerians were convicted in Libya for drug-related offenses. But because the trials were conducted in Arabic, and none of them spoke Arabic, I petitioned the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. That commission, at our instance, I did a petition on behalf of Serap. At our instance, the commission issued a provisional order, like an injunction, restraining the government of Libya from executing the Nigerians. I think Abike Dabiri was then the chair of the Diaspora Committee of the House of Reps. That committee had appealed to the federal government in vain. But based on our intervention, the court issued an order, and we wrote to, 2 months later, President Gaddafi, the late Muammar Gaddafi, became the chair of the African Union. And we took advantage of that to write to him and appeal to him to pardon this Nigeria by complying with the judgment of the African Commission. And that if you do not, you will be showing a bad example as the leader of the continent, as the chair of the African Union. President Gaddafi granted our request and granted pardon to the 200 convicted Nigerians on death row. They were deported and brought back to Nigeria. On another occasion, and this was 2015, we appealed to General Muhammadu Buhari, 70 soldiers and a general who was demoted to the rank of a colonel had fought the terrorists, but they didn't have adequate equipment. Mr. President, since you set up a presidential arms procurement panel, which had confirmed those who looted the huge sums, over $2 billion, earmarked for procurement of arms, please, can you grant pardon to these guys who were illegally convicted and sentenced? The 70 soldiers were sentenced to death. General Eniton Ransom Kuti was demoted to the rank of a colonel and also jailed for 6 months. We got the Army Council to quash his conviction for 6 months, and we now appeal to President Buhari to pardon him. Happily, his rank has since been restored. He has retired now as a brigadier general, while we are pursuing the demand for payment of the rights, the entitlement, outstanding salaries and allowances of the 70 soldiers. So I can go on and on. You recall in 1991, 12 young people under 17 were illegally sentenced to death, convicted of armed robbery, and sentenced to death in Lagos by an armed robbery tribunal. Again, we stopped there. We rushed to the court to stop their execution. And when a civilian government came on board in 1992, we appealed to you, the late Chief Michael Otodola, as the governor of Lagos State, to pardon these young people. They were pardoned. And so we already have a list of about 280 people. On no occasion, in none of these cases, has our law firm demanded for or received a dime, a kobo, from anybody who has been granted pardon.
Mr. Falana,
I was therefore flabbergasted.
Yeah. So that there are those who will say, did Bobrisky actually reached out to you? Did Bobrisky speak or directly or indirectly to you? If that is the case or not the case, what are you doing? You've written a letter seeking a retraction of it.
No.
But what are you doing to establish your innocence in what has been an allegation on this matter?
No, Seun. Bobrisky never spoke to me. I have never met him. I do not know him from Adam. He was alleged to have spoken to my son, Falana Fars. Yes, my son said this guy was appealing to people for assistance and called my son, I think on May 4 thereabout this year, please, can you give me 3 million naira to be placed in a special part of the prison? We call it the VIP section. And my son asking, are you calling me under the authorization of the superintendent of prisons? He said, no, please, don't call me again. I'm unable to assist you to bribe the prison authorities. And be very careful, since you're already in jail for an offense. Please, if you are going to call me next time, you either do it through the superintendent or you write a letter endorsed by the prison authorities. And that was the last. Somebody now said he listened to a tape somewhere and went out to lampoon and rather defame me by saying the guy had spoken to me. Of course, we are going to examine the call logs. And my son has also said, this was the guy who originated a call to me. My son has never negotiated fees on behalf of anybody. On the contrary, my 3 children normally refer people who need assistance to me, and not those. In fact, my wife was asking our kids recently, why are you always sending people who are not able to pay our fees? Next time we are going to be charging you. So this is the position. Now what I'm going to do, I have resisted the temptation shown to file a criminal complaint because I'm leading a team of lawyers in West Africa campaigning for decriminalization of freedom of expression. We have succeeded. This campaign is being coordinated by the Media Foundation for West Africa, of which I'm a member of the board. We have succeeded in getting Liberia, Ghana, and Sierra Leone to decriminalize freedom of expression. We are still appealing to other countries in the region to ensure that we respect freedom of expression. But that is not a license for defaming people, for blackmailing people. Once, and what we are saying, if you are defamed, in the words of the late Justice Olatawura, in the case of Otawankwa and the state, if you are defamed by anybody, please go out there and sue for libel, where you put your own character in issue. In this case, we are not going to file a criminal complaint. We will not be pushed to do that. I'm currently defending a couple of journalists who are standing trial either under the Cyber Crimes Act or under criminal libel. But what we are going to do is to embark on civil proceedings with a view to restoring our integrity, my own name and that of my son, so that nobody will simply rush to the social media to defame any Nigerian. We want to make an example. In this case, we have asked for a retraction and an apology rendered to us. And that is not too much. And if we don't have a retraction, an apology acceptable to us, accepted by us, we are certainly going to initiate civil proceedings in the High Court.
Yeah, Mr. Falana, because this is actually not, I mean, I'm saying for the sake of the public who have not seen or heard from you in this matter, who have the benefit of hearing your own side of the story. And that's why I brought it up. But I know how painful this could be, especially if you have built a reputation over the years. Now, the question here. Yeah, the question, quickly, Mr. Falana, because of the main subject for which I invited you. I'd like you to touch on the fundamentals aside the defamation or the libelous angle to this matter. Is the alleged corruption involved in our correctional service or with the EFCC about the withdrawal of a money laundering case dependent on a possible inducement? Just in about 60 seconds, Mr. Falana, so that we can get to the substantive matter for which we are here.
I'm a former inmate of the correctional centers in the country. I also do prison work. I've exposed the rot in the prisons more than any Nigerian. On one occasion, I did report, revealed that between 2005 and 2006, and I have a government report to this effect, that 197 people convicted of drug trafficking in the Federal High Court in Ikoyi, convicted and sentenced to prison terms without any option of fine, never made it to any prison in Nigeria. Never. When I petitioned the authorities, I think they declared them wanted. Only one was found. The rest went back to the trade. I'm still pursuing this matter. Secondly, everybody who has been to the prison, either as an inmate, an awaiting trial person, or a convict, knows that in every correctional center in Nigeria, there is a VIP section. It is called the White House. It's for big people. It's for big men and women. If you are a man of means or a woman of means, and you are detained in our prisons or correctional centers, you are going to be accommodated in the VIP section in the White House. So I'm rather surprised that the House of Reps was pretending not to know this, that a panel is being set up to know the state of our correctional center. But the Correctional Services Act of 2019 has made adequate provisions for checking the excesses of prison officials. I've just done a letter to the Honorable Minister of Interior, who is doing a marvelous job in that Ministry of Interior. I wrote to him a couple of weeks ago, Honorable Minister, by virtue of Section 21 of the Correctional Services Act, there shall be prison visitors. Visitors to go to visit our correctional centers on a regular basis and write reports, recommend what the government should do to address problems in our correctional center. And the minister has called me to assure me that the appointments will be carried out as soon as possible. So for me, if we have prison visitors going to the correctional centers on a regular basis, independent people, public officers, judges, members of the National Executive Body of the Nigerian Bar Association, as provided by the law, if they carry out their statutory duties, our country will not be exposed from time to time with respect to the management of correctional center. Nigeria has the lowest number of convicts in the world, having regards to our population, because the correctional center are now reserved for the wretched of the earth, the poor, the underprivileged, or the masses of our people. A big man or a big woman does not stay. I mean, it's difficult to ask a big man to go to the prison, even when they are charged. Even when a former governor, a former minister is charged with diverting billions of naira, you simply ask him to go to a correctional center for 2 days, awaiting the arguments on application for bail. So that's what is going on. It's only the poor that are railroaded to jail in Nigeria.
Let me take you to, I wish we had more time, but unfortunately, the substantive matter for which we invited you tonight. I saw a letter which you wrote to one to SIPEM and the other to Mary Techmont SPA. These are private entities which you wrote to in respect of the Port Harcourt refinery that is being touted to be rehabilitated with $1.5 billion US. Now, the question here is, we've been told severally, we've been given several dates for the completion of the rehabilitation of this refinery. But it does look like the more we look, the less we see. What did you find? Because in the letter, SIPEM is telling you that, Mr. Falana, we do not know anything about it. In fact, don't mention us again. Mary and Techmont are saying that on behalf of the lawyers wrote on behalf of the company. But where does this letter leave us? What do we know? What is the federal government saying?
Well, after the NNPC Limited had postponed the commission of the rehabilitated Port Harcourt refineries, I decided to get to the root of the matter. My organization, ASCAP, Alliance on Surviving COVID-19 and Beyond, mandated me to write to the 2 Italian contracting firms that got these contracts. In April 2021, the Federal Executive Council approved the award of the contract for the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt refinery to Maya Techmont SPA to fix the 2 refineries for the sum of $1.5 billion. And the duration of the contract was 33 months. With respect to SIPEM Contracting Nigeria Limited, again, it was announced sometime in August 2021 that that company has been awarded the contract to fix Warri and Kaduna refineries, again, for the sum of $1.4 billion. And the duration period was fixed for 33 months. The period is over, or the periods are over, the contract periods. So, a case of breach of both contracts has been established. Happily, both companies have sent me very revealing information with respect to the Port Harcourt refineries. My Techmont, through his lawyers, wrote to me last week, please give us more time. By the 2nd of October, we shall react to your request. On the 2nd of October, that company, through its lawyers, reacted to my request, declining to furnish me with information on the completion date of the rehabilitation of the two refineries on the ground that it is a private company, and so it is not banned by the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act. With profound respect to all the lawyers and their clients, the Court of Appeal has decided that if you are a private company and public funds are entrusted to you, you are banned by the provisions of the Act. So we are going to take up that elsewhere. Of course, we're going to take it up in the court. With respect to the more embarrassing situation, in fact, where Saipem is even threatening to sue me, as it were, for causing reputational harm by alleging that this contract was awarded to them to fix the Warri and Kaduna refineries. My colleagues, the law firm of Ajimogobia and Okeke, has also written to me that whereas our client had told you that these contracts were not awarded to them, why are you still demanding for information on the completion date of the contracts? And I have replied to the fact that this announcement was made by the Federal Executive Council in 2021, August. After 3 years, you have just denied to me. You have never denied the fact that these contracts were awarded to you. And shown up to now, the Federal Executive Council has now revoked the contracts and awarded them to another company. So our country has to get to the root of what can be said to be a case of monumental corruption. We are talking of $2.9 billion for a country that is said to be broke. We must now escalate this matter by inviting the relevant anti-corruption agency to assist the country to trace these funds.
So, Mr. Falana, on one hand is a trust that the Nigerian people have in its government when they make a promise of a particular project that directly impacts on their lives. So when the government continues to give a date, agreed that the contractor may be having some technical problem leading to the extension of the date. But are there explanations being made to the Nigerian people? Is the government taking the Nigerian people for granted? No. These are critical questions that needs to be also asked. Yes, on one hand, the private sector, the contractor getting the job, but what about the government and the trust in the Nigerian people, in accountability and the responsibility to the Nigerian people?
Now, again, the government has not been properly advised. What we used to know in this country is that if the government awarded a contract to a company, the government will simply summon the contractors to justify a delay in the execution of the contract. So it is not the place of the NNPC Limited or the federal government to announce when the refineries are going to be fully rehabilitated. The duty of the government is to summon the contractors to justify why a breach has occurred. And if a satisfactory explanation is not provided, the government will look at what the agreement says with respect to either going to court or usually an arbitration panel. In this case, I'm alleging fraud. And the government has a duty to the Nigerian people to indict any contracting firm that has messed up the country with respect to the repairs of the refinery, if Saipen is saying to the colossal embarrassment of the government, you never awarded these contracts to us, you are deceiving the Nigerian people by saying these contracts were awarded to us. So we're going to ask the Federal Executive Council, you approved the award of this contract in 2021. The company that you approved the contract for now says, we know nothing about this contract. It's a very, very serious embarrassment for any modern state.
All right.
The one of Port Harcourt has become a huge embarrassment. Even last December, the president announced that those two refineries will resume production, a business. And that was the information given to the president. I expect by now that those who embarrass the president to that extent to have been fired.
All right, Mr. Falana. Yeah.
And that has to be done now.
Yeah. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Femi Falana, Senior Advocate of Nigeria. In a sane, in a right thinking environment and society, critical questions as these should be answered and answered urgently. Well, we'll find out whether our country, our environment, or our society is just like we described it. Thank you so much indeed, Mr. Falana, for talking to us tonight. He's a scholar, a political analyst, and of course an elder statesman. Is live with me here in our Abuja studio. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and it's good to see you again.
My pleasure.
It's always a pleasure having you speak to us on some of these issues of the state of the nation. Now, there are a lot of people who will say our tax laws are outdated, if you call it old and irrelevant in a lot of ways. But the little bit that we heard when it was read on the floor today, how does it make you feel if it does look like there's going to be a restructuring of the Nigerian tax system? In fact, it's going to have a new name if it's passed into law.
Well, in any case, there is nothing in a name, really. I'm not impressed by any change of name. I'm impressed by the substance. These things that are being done are long overdue. But that's not where the problem is. And it's important that we prioritize. We look at the bigger picture. Sean, you can restructure the tax system, be fair, avoid double taxation, and sort of bring in more money. But how does that help us? If that money that has been collected is going to be put together and paid to some contractor in some road that we have never heard about, and nothing appears thereafter, and the whole money has been stolen. Femi Falana, the senior advocate, just talked about a contract that was, duly awarded with all the processes and procedures, and that today, barely 3 years after, nobody is even claiming. You can't even find the contractor. You can't find the job done. Where is the money? Where is the contractor? Where are the processes? So, yes, it's good to fine-tune and become more efficient in terms of governance. Tax governance. But my mind actually goes to the fact that after collecting the money, where does the money go? And this is the question we should be worried about, not worried about these things.
And when we look at what is obtainable in other climes, and at a point where we have economic difficulties in the country, and the realities of the average person is also very concerning. And you look at it, their purchasing power. If you look at some of the companies that deals in selling these bigger supermarkets in other climes, they cannot come here because the average person's purchasing power has been killed. What in your mind do you think can make us wake up our economy?
There are more consequences of what is happening now that I want us to turn our attention, right? Ask any university administrator or polytechnic or colleges of education, any of our tertiary institutions, since they opened, many of them, nearly half of their students cannot come back to school because they don't have the money to pay for the registration. I have spoken to lecturers. I have family members who are in the university system, and they report to me. What does that mean in the next few years? You're having young people who have been frustrated out of education, not because they have failed to, but because the economy has basically impoverished them. They cannot even continue school. We have been battling the rural bandits. These are going to be the urban bandits in the few years ahead. And this is the kind of attention that we should be given. But because we don't think through our problems, because half of the time elected political leaders are busy with frivolities, they are not knowledge driven, they have no statistics right in front of them when they take decisions. So these things are completely ignored. And the country will continue to, if you like, invite this, kind of, it will elicit the kind of problems that we're talking about. So we have seen them in other countries where they ignored these issues and they had this backlash, and it's going to come. It's already here, but I don't think government understands what is happening. I don't see them, speaking to the issues. I don't see them addressing the real problems. They keep tiptoeing around the real problems and coming up with, optics and cosmetics and inconsequential issues, while the real big issues are there waiting unaddressed. And this is my point. These big issues are going to generate the kind of backlash that can consume all the elites.
There is an erosion of the middle class that's supposed to be the fulcrum of our society. A little bit of those who are in the lower ladder, and a handful of those who are up there. That's how a reasonable society should form. But we have a situation, we have those in the upper and those in the majority in the lower class, impoverished. Over 100 million of poor people in our society today. It means a whole lot. And it then means that this government and all the governments in the federating units need to put on their thinking caps, because I'm of the school of thought that yes, the federal government has a huge responsibility on the global picture, but they are lazy and they are very, very irresponsible government at the federating unit who do not care about the people whom they govern over, because if they do, there are so fundamental and basic things that they should be doing, and such that the central should not be any of consequence to them. That is how a federal system should work. But where do we begin from? When we have a skilled societal structure and our people are suffering every day.
I think the real starting point is the political culture. In the last 25 years, we have developed a political culture that is not driven by knowledge, it's not driven by competence, it's not driven by conscience, it's not driven by any of those values, core values,
no morality,
core values that drive sane societies.
So how do we correct this? Where do we begin from?
We have to go back to leadership selection process. We have to recalibrate the leadership recruitment process. At the moment, the leadership recruitment process has no criteria beyond the fact that you have a secondary school certificate. And I keep saying that criteria is not a criteria for...
So we need to fix that in the Constitution.
Yeah. It may not go through. Ideally, we fix it in the Constitution. But any bill that seeks to introduce criteria in the leadership recruitment in the Constitution is dead on arrival. Because half or more than half of the parliament that is going to process the bill don't have that criteria that you're asking. And as you would expect, they will not allow any such thing to come. So therefore, the way to do it is that if you have a movement, a group of people that are convinced that this is something that we need to fix and are ready and have the courage of conviction, all they need to do is to pick a party, and this can be a small party, it can be a big party, but they can have a party that will agree, because the Constitution allows a party to have its own constitution, and a party within the INEC laws can, do its own, within its own constitution, design its own primary elections. And when you introduce criteria in those primary elections, you can then select very good, very conscientious, citizens who have the capacity, they have the knowledge, they have the values that go with it, and they are available. It's not that we don't have them.
Yeah, because I imagine
now when we have them,
yeah,
and then you also mobilize the society. And these are the people who, when they come into the National Assembly, they will expose the rot.
mm-hmm.
They may expel them if they want to, but they will remain, and they will expose the rot that is taking place. These are the people, if you have a few of them in the executive arm, either at local government level or at governor's level, they will also expose the rot, and they will do things correctly. And immediately the kind of difference between what is right and what is wrong will become glaring, and people will demand for it.
Yeah, Dr. Bugaje, and I imagine we have in countries where members of parliament, there is a competition of who finish from Harvard, Ivy Leagues, who finish from tops. And there were times in this country where the likes of Obafemi Awolowo University, the University of Ibadan, there is a competition in classes of government, and those who say they finish from this school, there is a competition of knowledge. And we are now in a society where is a competition of something else other than knowledge. A big question as to those who will never even employ some class of people based on their knowledge to head their private enterprise, but these are the lowest of the lowest in knowledge base, are the ones leading at the best of us. It's a sad scenario. But the question is, 64 years down the line, we celebrated independence 2 days ago. And you've seen it all. You were here. You were on that day during independence. Is this the dream of our forefathers or our founding fathers? Is this what they saw?
Certainly it is not. And it all happened right under our nose. Ignorance, corruption, imbecility took over governance. And then the learned and the more competent had to pull back. And society is today being led by that lot, that group of people whose ambition is not to fix their country. They have even no sense of shame that they, as parliamentarians or as governors or as local government chairmen, are looking up to lead other countries or to catch up with their peers. No, they are just busy amassing wealth and corrupting young people, creating all manners of corruption and destroying basically the economy of their own country. For them, they cannot even see the dangers of what they are doing, for some of them, because the knowledge for you to understand the consequences is not even there. So they are some of the most dangerous people that we have in this country.
And that's why politics is seen as a dirty
Precisely.
game.
Our politics is just a bunch of basically, it's a laughing
where the thugs and the lowest of the society play their dirty game.
So we have to, those of us, who are worried about this, and those who will have the courage, to need to come together. It's not a matter of exactly
an aggregation of knowledge and like minds.
I have made this point severally that we must have an elite consensus as to where do we want our country to be. And in this matter, we have to rise above the pettiness of where you come from. We have to salvage this country. It doesn't matter where you come from, you need a country. Today, in the 21st century, you can only exist in a country. There is no, what you might call no man's land, where you can go and live your life. You have to live in a country. And therefore, you have to fix your country if you really want to have peace, and you have to have a life that is meaningful. And the way to do it is to get those with the vision, with the knowledge, with the commitment, with the values to come together and work out their way through the muddle that is available. It can be done. It should be done. And I'm still appealing that there should be, the elite should rise above this pettiness, create a kind of elite consensus. And I thought some people have started. I have started some platforms. We are still working, towards that. That is the big tent, which we started with we started the also Rescue Nigeria project. But of course, what happens is that after the elections, most people pull back and try to sort out their personal problems. And in fact, the economy as it is now has made it more difficult for people to. But in spite of that, we still have a responsibility to come together to fix this country. And the only way to do it is to start the process of addressing the issue of leadership.
And thank you so much, Dr. Bugaje, for highlighting that. And I'm going to also point out that when the finest of our society sit back and do not participate in the political process, the charlatans will take over. And whatever they do, out of their lack of knowledge and character, will be whatever the rest of us will take. So it's important that when the elites come together and to lead by knowledge, because no society goes ahead or progresses without knowledge. And what pains me or what worries me more than what worries you is the fact that there is a generation behind my own generation that don't care about serious stuff. They don't care about our politics. They don't care about governance. They don't care about what matters to their nation. That worries me a lot because they think that anything other than this serious stuff is none of their business. And that worries me. But it brings me to a point, Dr. Bugaje, the president's speech on democracy. He mentioned and he touched on quite a few things. Issue of how to galvanize the Nigerian people, the need for unity. How do you assess President Tinubu's speech on the 1st of December?
The first thing is that that is not a speech. It's empty. The words are completely empty. How many times has he said that?
It went below your standard?
It's not even a standard at all. There are issues that worry people. He's supposed to speak about food security. That is what happens. He's supposed to tell us what he has done about food security.
He said that. He said that our farmers are going back to farm.
Which is not true.
He said that.
Which is not true.
We're going to wrap up
which is not true.
Production.
Which is not true. Has he spoken about the climate change that has wiped away whatever little gains we have done? Look at Maiduguri, look at Kebbi, look at Ibadan, look at so many other places, the flood. He doesn't even know what is happening in the country from the speech. Because if he did, he would have known that what is most important are the issues of food and the issues of security and the issues of the economy. You just mentioned it. The purchasing power has been completely destroyed. I mean, people who could use their earnings to buy food, they cannot do so now. Naira has basically no value at the moment. So these are the issues that he should be addressing. The fact that he acknowledges that citizens are going through very tough times, he doesn't realize that one, he has been elected not to acknowledge our suffering, but to fix it. And when he speaks to us, he should be speaking about how does he fix the problem. And then he does not live as if he knew that these things are happening. He's buying a new jet. He's traveling all over the place. His family members are doing all sorts of things. Is this the way to really empathize with citizens who cannot eat, who cannot sleep, who cannot go back to school, who cannot go to the hospitals? This is what is happening.
Dr. Bugaje, just in about 40 seconds or thereabout, because we need to close. Your final thought on the program. I don't know when next I'm going to be able to grab you and get you into the studio. For the rest of over 200 million people of this country and millions of those of them who are watching, who have fortunate to have power, who are able to charge their phone and watching on their devices right now, What kind of hope can we garner as a people? And what should we be doing by this time next year when we talk about another Independence Day? How do we survive? How do we stand as a people for the sake of our country? Our country is that precipice that we need to salvage it, isn't it?
The few of us that are still able to breathe in this suffocating environment have a responsibility to rescue our country. And what we need to do is to come together, form networks, and see how we can address the question of leadership. Because everything that is happening to us, if you reduce everything to what it is, it comes to leadership. And it is this leadership that we need to focus upon.
Yeah.
We need to develop a criteria. You cannot be a president until you have certain things. Look at Singapore. Recently, there were about 4 people, and they run this criteria over and over again until they came out with someone who fit the criteria. They are not throwing away the others because they have some kind of collegial leadership. Anybody else would still be useful in a particular.
Yeah.
So I think the focus is leadership.
Right.
How do we change our leadership recruitment process so that we can get the kind of people who can fit this country? But the bunch that I hear now, I give exception for a few here and there, but a great majority of them are no use. They are destroying this country, and we have to stop them.
Dr. Usman Bugaje, a scholar, a political analyst, and of course, an elder statesman. Thank you so much indeed for your time.